about bills or rent or, the price of groceries.
Just completely opting out of the struggle.
Exactly. Unapologetically opting out. It sounds incredible. So welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are exploring a cultural phenomenon that has totally taken over timelines and dating expectations. It's known simply as the soft life.
Yes, the soft life. It is everywhere right now.
It really is. And our source material for this conversation comes from Libohang Masongo's fascinating work. It's called The Soft Life, Love, Choice, and Modern Dating.
It's a great book, really insightful.
Totally.
Yeah.
And the mission here today is to figure out exactly why young, ambitious South African women are so overtly prioritizing wealth and financial security in their romantic relationships. And spoiler alert, it is profoundly deeper than just wanting nice things.
It really is, because it is incredibly easy to scroll past these, perfectly curated images on social media and just dismiss the entire concept as a shallow internet trend.
Oh, for sure. People judge it instantly.
Exactly. But when you examine the actual lived experiences that are detailed in Masongo's research, the soft life reveals itself as a highly complex response to global capitalism and deep historical inequalities, plus the very harsh realities of living in a precarious economic climate.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand the depth of it, I think we need to first look at what this actually looks like in popular culture.
Yeah, the aesthetics of it all.
Right, and how some young women are effectively weaponizing their beauty to attain this lifestyle. There's this incredible contrast drawn in our sources. Let's go back to an iconic South African television interview. This is from 2010.
Oh, the Deborah Patta interview?
Yes. So the journalist Deborah Patta, who is, famous for absolutely grilling politicians.
Just
Totally relentless. She sat down with the actress and socialite Connie Mbao. And Patta was practically berating her for her lavish lifestyle, comparing her to, Marie Antoinette.
Which is an intense comparison.
Very. Especially in a country where poverty is a very real, very pressing issue. So they're sitting there, and Patta asks Connie point blank if her aspiration was simply to marry a rich man.
And Connie's response became legendary. I mean, just for its sheer, unapologetic bluntness. She calmly looks at the journalist and says, "I won't date a poor man. I don't make it my business to find them."
It's so wild to hear that said so plainly.
Right. And Patta tries to push her, suggesting a poor man would get dumped like a hotcake. And Kanye just closes her eyes slightly and says, he's not even going to get in.
I mean, back in 2010, that level of unabashed honesty about marrying for money was genuinely scandalous. To say that out loud on national television.
This was a massive deal.
But fast forward to 2022, and that mindset isn't just normalized. It is being broadcast daily by everyday people. Like, we see this in a viral YouTube clip of two influencers, Lalo and Nicole.
Ah, yes, the champagne clip.
Exactly. They're sitting around with champagne, perfect manicures, casually breaking down what constitutes a broke man. And Nicole sets the baseline at a salary of 50,000 Rand a month.
Which is roughly, what, a few thousand US dollars?
Yeah, and even then, she argues it's barely enough. She explicitly says a guy with a standard 9-to-5 call center job is an absolute no-go.
Because he has to fund her weekly hair, makeup, and clothes on top of a house and kids?
Right. And when you look at those demands, it's really easy to judge.
Of course. But what's fascinating here is that scholars Anna Sophia Elias, Rosalind Gill, and Christina Scharf coined a term for what we are actually witnessing. They call it aesthetic entrepreneurship.
Aesthetic entrepreneurship. Okay, break that down for us.
So we live in a highly visible digital neoliberal world. Now, I know neoliberalism can be a dense academic term.
Yeah, it sounds like textbook jargon.
It does, but in this context, it simply means that the logic of the free market, branding, investment, return on investment, has bled into our personal lives. You are your own brand.
Okay, I see where this is going.
Under this framework, the pursuit of beauty isn't just a vanity project. It is treated as legitimate, grueling labor.
I want to pause on that, actually, because calling hair and makeup grueling labor is going to make some people roll their eyes really hard. Are we really equating getting your nails done with actual labor?
In the context of aesthetic entrepreneurship, yeah, absolutely. Think about the sheer amount of time, physical discomfort, and financial capital required to maintain the soft life aesthetic.
Like the hair installations and stuff.
Yes, the hair installations, the intense skincare routines, the constant curation of a digital image. It requires immense discipline and resources.
That's fair. It's a part-time job in itself.
Exactly. These women are investing heavily in their appearance as a form of capital. And just like any market investor, they expect a literal return on that investment when they enter the dating market.
You know, when you frame it like that, it honestly reminds me of corporate branding.
How so?
Well, if a massive tech company spends millions of dollars polishing its image, right, creating beautiful marketing materials, curating this irresistible aesthetic specifically to attract high-paying investors.
We applaud them for having good business sense.
Exactly. No one calls a startup shallow for wanting a billionaire venture capitalist to fund them. So why is the reaction so intensely hostile when a young woman applies that exact same logic to her own appearance to attract a high-earning partner?
That is the exact double standard the research points out. It's spot on. But to really grasp why this logic is being applied so aggressively to dating right now, we have to pull back from the glossy internet fantasy.
Right, look at the reality on the ground.
Exactly. We need to look at the gritty reality of the environment these women are actually navigating. The socioeconomic backdrop of South Africa is critical here.
Yeah, because it's not just happening in a vacuum.
Not at all. The sources outline a context of struggling state infrastructure, widespread reports of political corruption, and devastating load shedding.
And if you're listening to this from outside of South Africa, we should probably clarify what load shedding is.
Good idea. So, load shedding refers to scheduled rolling blackouts because the national grid basically cannot meet the country's energy demands,
And it gets intense. Sometimes this reaches stage 8.
which means people are without power for up to 12 hours a day.
Half the day just in the dark.
Yes. Combine that with the intense economic ruin brought on by the COVID-19 lockdowns, and you have an environment where the state's social safety net is either fraying or honestly completely non-existent.
If you're listening to this and you've always taken a stable power grid or reliable public transport for granted, it's really hard to overstate how much this kind of precarity dictates your everyday survival.
It dictates everything.
The sources highlight real people dealing with this. Take Camilla, she's a 28-year-old junior publicist and a single mom.
Her story was intense.
It really was. During the height of the pandemic, when everyone was terrified of the virus, her bosses refused to let the staff work from home.
Which is wild.
Right, so she had to commute every single day on crowded minibus taxis. And in South Africa, the taxi industry frequently packs people in to maximize profits.
So there's no social distancing happening there.
0. She is sitting there in a tin can, terrified of catching a deadly virus and bringing it home to her child, just to keep a basic paycheck.
It's an exhausting way to live. And you see similar structural barriers with another woman mentioned in the research, Bongi.
Oh yeah, Bonji's story really stuck with me.
She's 27. She did everything right by getting her business degree, but she simply cannot find a job because the graduate unemployment rate is just staggeringly high.
So she adapts, right? She starts an online handbag store.
She does. But she lives in Soweto, a massive township that faces a phenomenon researchers call energy racism.
Energy racism, let's break that down. How is that different from the national load shedding we just talked about?
It's an added layer of precarity. On top of the national blackouts everyone experiences, poorer areas and townships like Soweto often experience what's called load reduction.
Which means,
This is when the power utility targets specific areas to reduce strain on the grid, often arguing it's due to illegal connections or unpaid bills in those communities.
oh wow, so they get hit twice as hard.
Exactly. The result is that a young entrepreneur like Bongi faces far more power cuts than someone living in a wealthy suburb. It constantly interrupts her internet connection and her ability to run her e-commerce business.
That's incredibly frustrating.
She has to plan her entire life, her entire livelihood, around when the power might magically come back on.
Okay, so when you lay all that out, the physical danger of the commute, the impossibility of running a business without power, it fundamentally changes how I view the demand for a wealthy partner.
It frames it as a necessity, not a luxury.
Because when you are living in a society where the state fails to provide basic safety, reliable electricity, or, functioning job markets, a romantic partner's financial stability isn't just a luxury perk.
No, it becomes something else entirely.
It's a privatized social safety net. It is a literal survival strategy to find someone whose wealth can insulate you from the collapse of public infrastructure.
Precisely. The soft life becomes a highly rational response to systemic precarity. If the environment you are forced to navigate is fundamentally hard, you seek a partner who can act as a buffer.
Someone to provide the softness and the security that the world denies you.
Exactly.
But here's where it gets really interesting, because logic kind of dictates that if the ultimate goal is just financial security and survival, A woman would put up with absolutely anything from a rich man just to keep that money flowing, right?
That is the assumption, yes.
It plays right into the old stereotype of the miserable woman crying in the passenger seat of the Mercedes just to keep the Mercedes. But the source material shows that these women are actually doing the exact opposite.
Yes, the lived experiences challenge that gold digger stereotype entirely. There is a fascinating case study in the book about a 29-year-old actuary named Jolie.
Oh, I love this part.
So when she was 23, she was approached on the street by a 39-year-old executive named Mengaliso, who was driving a Maserati.
Like, very flashy.
Very. They ended up dating for 5 years, and he provided an incredibly lavish lifestyle. At one point, just to test the waters, she asked to borrow 500 rand.
And what did he do?
Mengaliso immediately sent her an instant money voucher for 1,000 rand, no questions asked. He just wanted to give her a leg up.
It sounds like she found the ultimate privatized safety net, so she held on tight, right?
Actually, no. During the pandemic, she dumped him.
She dumped the guy in the Maserati who sends double the money you ask for? Why?
Because he fundamentally refused to respect her time.
Really? Just over time?
Yeah, he was an executive, always flying around, and he started treating her schedule like an afterthought. He would test her an hour late for a date, or try to squeeze her in during a lunch break as if her time was infinitely flexible.
Wow.
Jolie is an actuary. She has a demanding career of her own. She finally reached a point where she told him, I have job too, my time matters.
Good for her.
The Maserati, the lavish lifestyle, the instant cash, none of it was enough to compensate for the anxiety and disrespect of her schedule.
That completely flips the narrative. And she isn't the only one. There's also Lily, a 31-year-old entrepreneur.
Her story is also very telling.
She was dating this politically connected statistician from the Democratic Republic of Congo named Yannick. He is flying her all over the world. France, Senegal, paying for absolutely everything.
Total luxury.
But when the pandemic hit, Yannick was put on his country's COVID task force. Naturally, he became incredibly busy dealing with a national crisis and was only texting her back at 11 p.m. or 2 a.m.
And how did she react?
Lily felt neglected, felt her peace was disturbed, and she simply ended the relationship.
It's like that.
Walked away from global, all-expenses-paid travel because the communication became stressful.
And we have to note that Lila had a history of enforcing these strict boundaries. Previously, she dated a wealthy heir to a massive taxi business named Becky. There was cash flowing every single day.
Right.
But the moment she realized his business had criminal elements and ties to violence, she ended that relationship too. She refused to live with the anxiety of wondering if her partner was going to end up in jail, or worse.
I think that detail is crucial. It completely shatters the stereotype of the desperate gold digger holding on for dear life.
Absolutely.
Because if the money was the only goal, you'd put up with the late texts, you'd look the other way on the criminal ties. But for these women, the money is just the entry fee. The actual destination is peace.
Peace of mind.
Yes. If a wealthy man brings chaos, anxiety, criminality, or just disrespects your time, he violates the core tenet of the soft life.
That is the essential takeaway. The wealth is useless to them if it costs them their peace of mind. It is about emotional and psychological ease just as much as material comfort.
Yet, despite these very clear boundaries, the media and the public frequently demonize these women.
Oh, constantly.
They get slapped with derogatory labels like blessies or slay queens, and there's often this underlying accusation that they are basically engaging in transactional sex. Why is the cultural judgment so harsh? Where does this disconnect come from?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look at the history of marriage, economics, and culture in Africa.
Okay, take us back.
The societal judgment often stems from imposing Western, hyper-individualized ideas of romance onto a completely different cultural framework. The sources reference sociologist Mark Hunter.
Oh.
He developed this concept called provider love. Historically, in many African cultures, through customs like ilabalo, which translates roughly to bride wealth, a man's ability to materially provide for a woman and her family was not seen as a cold, calculated transaction.
It wasn't just buying a wife.
Right. It was seen as a genuine expression of love and commitment. The material provision was the emotional care.
So it's not a case of, I will pretend to love you if you buy me things. It's your willingness to buy me things and secure my future is how I know your love is real. That makes a lot of sense when you look at Jolie's background. She was raised in a Senegalese community where she observed that divorce is incredibly rare and the men pay for absolutely everything.
The financial burden rests entirely on the husband there.
Yeah. She recalls being genuinely shocked when she found out her South African friends' mothers were paying for groceries and electricity. For her, a man paying isn't some modern internet grift. It is deeply historically traditional.
Exactly. The expectation of provision is deeply rooted. But the modern South African reality is very different from that traditional Senegalese model. And to understand why, we have to look at the historical trauma of apartheid.
Because it fundamentally shifted the economics.
Yes. The apartheid regime did not just enforce racial segregation, it intentionally and systematically impoverished Black South Africans over decades.
Right, they engineered economic devastation. So how did that impact modern dating dynamics?
Well, when the country transitioned to democracy in 1994, there was a massive push to build a Black middle class. But because generational wealth had been systematically denied, building that middle class from scratch required double-income households. You couldn't achieve middle-class status on a single salary.
So everyone had to pitch in financially.
Yes. This economic necessity created the modern 50-50 financial split in South African relationships. Women had to enter the workforce and split the bills just so the household could survive and advance.
And from the source material, it's clear that women like Jolie deeply resent this dynamic today.
Deeply resented.
Because the 50-50 split only applies to the finances. It doesn't apply to the rest of the relationship. Women are expected to contribute 50% of the rent, but they are still socially expected to do the vast majority of the unpaid domestic labor.
The cooking, the cleaning, the emotional heavy lifting.
Exactly. It feels fundamentally unjust to them.
It is a double burden. And so the rejection of the 50-50 split by women seeking the soft life is a rejection of that double burden. They are reclaiming the concept of provider love in a modern context.
It makes me think of the modern concept of love languages.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Right. Like, we all accept that some people need words of affirmation or physical touch to feel secure in a relationship. We don't judge that.
No, it's totally normalized.
For the women in this research, their love languages are acts of service and gift-giving. A man paying the bill isn't a shallow extra. It is the fundamental vocabulary of romantic safety for them.
Absolutely.
If he isn't providing, they literally cannot feel loved because it goes against their historical and cultural understanding of what care looks like.
That's a very helpful framework for understanding it. The desire for a provider is deeply embedded in their psychology. But this brings us to a fascinating, very real-world dilemma.
Okay, that is it.
We've established the historical, economic, and psychological demands for a wealthy provider. But human attraction is unpredictable.
That is very true.
What happens when a woman deeply desires provider love, but she falls in love with a man who simply doesn't fit the billionaire blueprint?
Does she just abandon ship and hold out for the Maserati? According to the book, not always.
Right.
We meet Nomond. She's a 33-year-old advertising executive living in Cape Town. And she happily describes herself as a champagne girl.
Which means she likes the finer things.
Yes, she likes luxury, and if she wants something, she buys it. For a long time, she envisioned herself ending up with a 6'8" gazillionaire. But life happens. She goes through a period of intense personal grief after her beloved uncle passes away, which forces her to completely reevaluate what kind of emotional support she actually needs from a partner.
And who does she end up choosing?
She ends up choosing Thulani. He's 28. He works as a training manager at a university. And crucially, he earns significantly less money than she does.
Which presents an immediate conflict. You have her champagne girl reality colliding with her inherent desire for provider love.
Exactly.
She wants the luxury, she wanted the emotional feeling of being provided for, but her partner's salary cannot stretch to cover both. So Nomond reconciles this through a very specific, negotiated compromise.
How so?
She loves to travel, and she knows Thulani cannot afford to fly her to the south of France. So she admits that she splits those massive, expensive bills, even though she worries about potential resentment building up down the line.
Right, because it goes against the grain for her.
Yes. But to maintain the psychological dynamic of him being a provider, she engages in what she explicitly calls training him.
Yes, the trading aspect is fascinating. She purposefully manufactures scenarios for him to pay for things. She'll text him and say, "Please send me money for my nail appointment." Or she'll ask him to cover the household electricity bill for the month.
Which is such a specific strategy.
It is. Now, to be clear, she is an advertising executive. She has plenty of her own money. She could easily pay for her nails and the electricity without blinking. But she actively asks him to do it. So what does this all mean? If you're listening to this, you might be thinking, isn't Nomond just deluding herself?
Right, like is it just smoke and mirrors?
Yeah, isn't she playing a game of pretend where she acts like he's the provider, even though she's funding the trips to France?
It might look like cognitive dissonance or delusion on the surface, but sociologically speaking, Nomad is actually brilliantly hacking the patriarchal system to get what she needs.
Hacking the system. I like that.
She recognizes that under patriarchy, men are socially conditioned to need to feel needed. They are taught that their value is tied to their ability to provide.
So she gives him the opportunity to do that.
Exactly. By manufacturing these smaller scale opportunities for Thulani to step up, buying the electricity, paying for the nails, she secures the emotional benefits of provider love for herself.
She gets to feel taken care of.
Yes, and at the same time, she validates his masculinity and makes him feel valued in the relationship. She gets the emotional piece of the soft life without requiring him to actually be a billionaire. It is a highly pragmatic adaptation to her reality.
She is hacking the system for emotional peace. It's actually a brilliant compromise when you realize the constraints they are both operating under.
It's very smart.
So, bringing this all together, when you look at all these stories, from Kanye Bao to Jolie to Nomadra, it becomes incredibly clear that the soft life is not some Disney fairy tale where women are just passively sitting in a tower waiting to be rescued by a prince's credit card.
Definitely not.
And it's certainly not a moral failing or shallow materialism. It is a highly rational, modern survival strategy. These young women are looking at a system that has historically disadvantaged them, living in an economy that offers zero safety nets, and they are using digital media to set fierce boundaries.
They are rejecting systemic hardship.
Exactly. Demanding comfort in a world that often goes out of its way to deny it to them.
It really requires us to look in the mirror and question our own assumptions. I would encourage you listening to this to reflect on your own dating standards, regardless of your gender or where you live.
Yeah, it's a universal question.
When you peel back the layers, how much of what you consider to be pure, unadulterated romantic attraction is actually just a disguised desire for economic safety and peace of mind? We all fundamentally want a partner who makes us feel secure and less anxious about the future. The women in this research are simply defining that security in very literal material terms.
That is a profound question to ask yourself. How much of romance is just a search for safety?
It's something we don't like to admit.
No, we really don't.
Yeah.
And I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to mull over. We spent a lot of time today talking about how the soft life is a localized reaction, right?
Yeah.
A survival strategy in response to a failing local economy and infrastructure in South Africa.
Yes.
But think about the world we live in right now. We are in the era of remote work, digital nomadism, and global connectivity. It has never been easier to live in one place and connect with someone thousands of miles away.
That's very true.
So will the soft life mindset eventually kill the concept of dating locally entirely? If you have the ability to jump on an app and manifest a wealthy partner across the globe from your smartphone, why would you ever settle for the harsh economic realities of your own zip code?
That is a fascinating point.
As the world gets smaller, the pursuit of the soft life might just change the geography of romance forever. Something to think about. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. See you next time.